South Dakota had been one of the first states to affirm the ratification of the ERA, but they were also one of the first states in the 80s when Scott was elected to rescind that ratification. And at the time we were serving, there were currently 10 women in the entire South Dakota legislature in the 80s. Since that time, we reached a high in 1991 of 26 women, but we are now back to 21 who serve in the South Dakota legislature. Our progress for women has been slow, sometimes one step ahead, two steps behind. We have many challenges ahead of us. South Dakota women, who you have already heard, have the highest labor force participation of any state in the union and still ranks 44th in median annual earnings. And you have already heard that Native American women continue to endure privations far greater than white women. To improve these numbers, we need to increase the educational opportunities for women in South Dakota. Today, only 21% of South Dakota women have college degrees. Over the years, I have been fortunate to have several careers, including teacher, legislator, minister, healthcare consultant, but did not retire from full-time work until 5 years ago at the age of 70. But I have many friends who haven't been as fortunate to do that. And now, as part of one of those invisible seniors, of aging seniors, I am very aware of how important it is to have a governor who understands the issues for seniors that are inherent in this state, where 14.5% of our population is over 65. That's compared to 12.9% nationally. Since we live in a place where aging in place is a fact, that number will only continue to grow as the baby boomers have already begun to turn 65. Just in the city of Sioux Falls alone, we have a number of adults over 50, numbers 53,000, and by 2020, that number will reach 70,000. That's a third of the population of this city. Senior issues will be extremely important, including Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. But Scott understands the need for South Dakota residents to have choices as seniors to remain in their homes and communities as they age. And he supports making the long-term care system in South Dakota more responsive to the needs and preferences of our residents. Access is the key. And access to transportation, medical care, housekeeping, proper nutrition, companionship, and service providers are high on his list of support. Also important for seniors is his support to make sure the federal laws against age discrimination are being enforced. And he understands that employing citizens that are seniors is an effective means of providing stable and reliable employment. And we have a lot of them. So we need a governor who not only supports everything that has been mentioned today, but also supports the needs of women and seniors, and Scott is the governor who can do that. He certainly has my vote, as he would have 30 years ago. Thank you.
We women are here to voice our strong support for Scott Heidepriem, and now we'd like to hear from him. We want him to be our next governor.
Susie and I are so grateful to all of you. This is really meaningful to us. It's a really big deal. And I can't help but think about the fact that your presence here represents a collection of priorities that have been neglected over the last 8 years and perhaps longer and can no longer be neglected. The one thing we know for sure, and I don't think my opponent would object to this, is that if we do not succeed in what you're proposing today, nothing will change. Everything will stay the same. To some extent, it may even go downhill in terms of the care we've been talking about today, which is simply unacceptable for the future of South Dakota and for our children. Whenever a group like this comes together, it's amazing to me how much you learn. I learned from Paula that there are 6,000 veterans who are women in South Dakota. I didn't know that. And she is exactly right. The problems facing veterans must be elevated to a cabinet level status. I learned from Tate about the suicidal ideations on the reservation and what a third world condition that is. And she is right. That requires the attention of the next administration. It requires an emphasis that hasn't been present, and it requires a cabinet-level treatment of those issues. I learned from Kate and from Jack about the pre-K program, and how amazing that has been and how successful it's been. It surprises me to this day that my opponent opposes the Birth to 3 program, opposes a pre-K set of rules at the state level. I can't, for the life of me, conceive of how that is a position one can even take in polite company in a state like South Dakota that depends on those programs, that depends on Birth to 3 and really needs something like pre-K. You know, the old-fashioned idea that pre-K is simply a bowl of Fruit Loops in a Disney video is no longer adequate for the people of South Dakota. What you've heard today is right. 77% of all households with a mom and a dad have both mom and dad working outside the home for a W-2 and trying to support their family and give their child an upbringing that involves nurturing, that involves stimulation. That's really hard to do without pre-K rules. And in Sioux Falls, as been pointed out, we're really lucky. We're lucky because the Chamber of Commerce has stepped up and we have a pilot project that takes Head Start and extends those benefits to more people. But now the pilot's going away because it's at the end of its time and we still don't have any pre-K rules at the state level, and my opponent opposes them. We learned from Susie about health care and how tragic it is in South Dakota when health care is left in an inadequate state, and how important it is that we all work together to change that. And from Shirley, thank you very much for that personal tribute, Shirley. I remember you so fondly as a mentor of mine in those days in the house, and it was really a big deal. Phyllis, thank you too for all of your kind words. I just want you to know that, as I've said from the beginning of this campaign until the present time, the challenges facing South Dakota are enormous, but they are manageable. We can do a better job than we have done for the collective choices that all this group represents. You know, for too long, the issues that these folks have talked about have been neglected. And it's just unacceptable, and it has to change. There's been much made of the fact that I changed political parties some years ago. I did, and in no small part, because of the issues you've heard about today. Not just reproductive rights, although there's no secret that was an important issue to us, but all of the issues you've heard about. All of the issues in which there is a role to be played to strengthen family ties, to strengthen the child's chance for success in South Dakota and the United States. And it really is up to us to change that entire focus and to change all of those priorities. And here's exactly how we're going to do it. We're going to, first of all, reduce the size of government in areas where it can be reduced. We are going to exclude K-12 education and Medicaid, which are the programs we've been talking about primarily here today. And once we do that, we'll have to eliminate this gaping deficit we have been provided by this administration of $107 million. We'll balance the budget, and then we're going to invest in kids and schools and infrastructure so that we have a 21st century education system and a 21st century infrastructure with roads and bridges and kids and schools that we can all be proud of. It's because of a collection of people like these great South Dakota citizens that we even have a chance to do it. But we cannot let them down. It is critical that we not let them down, and that we work tirelessly for the next 7 days to make sure that this message goes out to all of South Dakota, and that every single citizen in the state of South Dakota knows the crucial choice facing us between the two candidates running for governor of South Dakota. I just can't thank all of you enough, and I know I speak for Susie when I tell you that we are incredibly grateful. And the chance we have to win this election is so important, and it's because of you, and we thank you.